Alrighty, well, good morning again. Every time I look at these videos, I think of that big giant head from the Third Rock from the Sun or whatever. I never really watched that show, but I did see the big giant head a few times. I knew people who watched it. But anyway, and I seen bits and pieces of it. And they had that thing at the end where they do the big giant head, where the guy had to report to the big giant head. And it kind of reminds me of that. Or like the movie 1984 where they had Big Brother on the screen. That's this big giant head, Anyway, there's Rocky. He's having a sleep there. This is the patented Camp Crazy Rocky cam. I say that leg bleeds. It does. He says, please, no photographs. You see the blood on the comforter. His leg bleeds a lot. But anyway, where he had the snake bite a few years back. It's never healed right. And the vet wants $600 in testing before you even think of treating it. Anyway, on another topic, though, came up on my Facebook news feed today. Oh, there he goes. He's repositioning himself. He's pretty cute. It came up on my Facebook news feed today, this thing. And it kind of caught my eye because it was kind of weird. It said, Save Queer Heritage. So this is where we're at now in Canada anyway. Save Queer Heritage. It turns out there's a park in Ottawa, in the city of Ottawa. And there's some ruins of an old mill in this park, near to a river. And apparently 50 years or so ago, the gay community in Ottawa kind of co-opted these ruins, started going down there, and apparently they're, well, they say naturists, basically they're nudists. So they go down there, and I guess they take their clothes off, and, they be nude down there, and they, they do, sometimes they do sexual things with each other down there and stuff like that. Anyway, that's considered now queer heritage. And they're upset because the park authority and the police are cracking down on them. And they're claiming now this mill as they're saying it's a queer space, and we have to protect queer spaces, they're saying. And they're saying that it's also a queer heritage space. And so we have to protect the queer heritage there, because they've been going down there and frolicking around in the nude with each other for 50 years. And therefore, it's now a queer heritage space. Yeah, I have a few issues with that. For one thing, when they talk about protecting queer spaces, and also they're including the transsexuals in this, as they mention them too. What I'm wondering is, why aren't female-only spaces protected? Look, I mean, I'm a 56-year-old man. At this point in Canada, if I say that I identify as a woman, I can go into any ladies' washroom or changing room anywhere. And by law, I have a right to do that. I'm protected. I can do that and I'll be protected. And in fact, if a woman objects, she'll be the one in trouble, because now she's discriminating against me. So I can go into any women's changing area, say in a swimming pool or whatever, and I can go in there and I can take my clothes off, and women who are using the changing facilities are also naked. I can walk in there when women are naked, and if they object, I will be the victim. provided that I say I identify as a woman. Doesn't that open up the door to all the sex perverts, to all the voyeurs and other such people? You know, exhibitionists and voyeurs and so on. Also, right now in Canada, we have men, serving time in female prisons. They'll literally lock a man in a cage with a female prisoner. All you got to do is, if you're going to jail, say you identify as a woman. Again, and mostly the ones who do this are sex offenders, because sex offenders are afraid of men's prison. Because in men's prison, sex offenders are treated really badly. Sex offenders get beat up. Sex offenders get used really badly in men's prison. They're not very well liked. There's a kind of a hierarchy or a pecking order in men's prison. And at the very bottom of it are the pedophiles and the rapists and other sex offenders. And then, the pecking order kind of goes up from there. If you're a cop killer or a bank robber or somebody like that, you're on the high end of the pecking order. But if you're a diddler or whatever, then you're at the low end. And you don't want to be at the low end of the pecking order in prison. It's not pretty if you end up in the low end of the pecking order in prison. And see, these guys know that. And so they say, I identify as a woman. Now they have a right to serve time in a female correctional facility because they say they identify as a woman. Women in those facilities have been raped by their cellmates, by their male cellmates. Bear in mind now, too, you're not just putting a man in there, you're putting a rapist, in many cases. So like I say, it's the sex offenders mostly who claim to be female so they can get put there, so they don't have to deal with what's going to happen to them in a men's prison. And so you're actually putting a convicted rapist in a cage, locking a convicted rapist in a cage with a woman. And they have a right to serve time in a female facility. In this country, that's actually the law now. They have a right to that. But the women serving time in a female prison, they don't have a right not to be locked in a cage with a rapist. In fact, if they object, they're being discriminatory. They're being hateful. I mean, that's how that and I'm not being hyperbolic here. That is literally how insane things have gotten in this country. That actually has happened. Female prisoners in women's prisons have actually been locked in cages with male prisoners who are convicted of rape, and they have been raped. Who could see that coming? Lock a woman in a cage where you got a toilet out in the open, and where she has to do everything in front of a man. She has to change her clothes in front of the man, because you lock a man in there with her. She has to use the toilet in front of the man. She has to change her clothes in front of the man. And not only that, but the man is a rapist. How long do you think he's going to be in there with her before he makes her his latest victim? I mean, it makes absolutely no sense. And people will say, well, if you don't commit the crime, then you don't end up in that situation. And there's some truth in that, although sometimes innocent people are convicted because the system isn't perfect, and also because the system is corrupt. So sometimes it's an honest mistake when that happens. Sometimes it's corruption that causes it. Either way, there are some innocent people in prison. I'm not saying everybody in prison is innocent, though. I don't think that's true. But even the guilty ones, the punishment is that you are separated from society, that you have your freedom taken from you. You no longer decide where you go and when you go there. You no longer decide when you eat and what you eat. You no longer decide anything like that. All your decisions are made by the administration of the prison. And you're made to live like that for however long the judge has decided you're going to live that way. And that's your punishment. So if you're a woman who's committed some crime, if you're involved in criminal activity, that's what you can look forward to when you get caught. But nowhere in the criminal code do we have a provision to punish a woman by raping her. That's not a thing here. We don't use rape as a punishment. So if you're some woman and you're dealing dope out of your house, or whatever, and are you involved in whatever kind of a crime, a lot of women, it's drug-related crimes, then yeah, you get caught, you're going to prison. And right on. You should go to prison if you're doing that, whether you're a woman or not. But, you'd be nowhere but where you deserve to be if you're doing things like that. However, you don't deserve to be raped. I mean, but in Canada, we actually do that. We'll lock a rapist in a cage with a woman who's in there for some crime. And then it's like, who saw that coming? She got raped? Really? Nah. That can't have happened. Come on. You're telling me she got raped because we locked her in a cage with a rapist? I don't believe it. That just sounds ridiculous. And she objected to being locked in the cage with the rapist when she found out that, we're going to lock this rapist in here with you, and she objected to it. Well, see, right there, she is discriminatory. That's a very hateful woman. Maybe we need to add a little time to her sentence, just to drive the point home that you can't be a discriminatory bigot. A trans woman is a real woman, after all. How dare she object to being locked in a cage with a man who identifies as a woman, and therefore is a woman? That's about the mentality we're dealing with now. It's just beyond insane. Anyway, that's one of my things about this thing. They're talking about queer spaces. Okay, you want to protect queer spaces. What about protecting female-only spaces? Oh, no, we can't do that. We can't have that. But we got to protect queer spaces. For another thing, who are they to claim a public space as their space? I mean, look, I'm homeless. Can I just go to a corner of a park somewhere and say, okay, I declare that this is my property, and build a little house on it and stuff? No, I can't do that. Can I go to like Stewart Park in Perth? The park behind the town hall? I've done some videos of that with the Rainbow Bridge. Hey, that's ironic, the Rainbow Bridge. Although, to be fair, the Rainbow Bridge has been called the Rainbow Bridge since it was built over 50 years ago. But still, before rainbow was a gay thing. But anyway, I could go to Stewart Park in Perth, and I could build myself a cabin. There's Last Duel Park, too. It's kind of a pretty spot. They've already got a cabin there. Maybe I could just break into that and start living in it and say, well, this is my house now. I declare this space mine. I mean, why not, if we can just do that? If people can just declare a space theirs because they want it to be theirs or whatever. I've decided I like this spot. I'm going to claim this as my own. I mean, it doesn't make any sense that they should be able to do that. Say, well, this is a queer space. No, it's a public space. And the other thing is, too, You can't be nude and be doing sexual things in a public space. Like they're saying it's discriminatory. They won't let us be nude and do sexual things in a public space, in this public space, which we have claimed as our space. We've just arbitrarily said this is a queer space. No, no. Look, your bedroom in your house is a queer space if you're homosexual. If you want to have sex with your boyfriend, take him to your bedroom in your house and do whatever you're going to do in there. That's between the two of you. It's none of our business. I have no issue with that. I mean, scripturally, yes, it's condemned, but that's God who condemns that, and it's God who will deal with all the sin and stuff. It's not for me to take it upon myself to be a vigilante and to take it upon myself to punish these people. You know, I'm not trying to put God out of a job. You know, that's God's job. And I'm sure he's good at it. He's good at everything else he does. Why wouldn't he be good at dealing with all that stuff? So I'll leave that to him, as well I should. And actually, if I don't leave it to him, then I'm committing a sin. You know, just the idea that I'm somehow better able to deal with things than God. That and that alone would be a sin. You know, that's the sin that Lucifer committed. He decided he was better at running the universe than God. He was going to dethrone God, and he was going to run the universe. And God soon put a stop to that. So, I mean, I don't really want to fall into the trap Lucifer fell into. I don't think that'd be a good idea. I don't think that would be a good career move on my part. But here's the thing. In the end, what they do in their own space is their own business. One of the commentators on there brought up a good point. They said, look, if you want a queer space, then get together, pool your money, and buy a cottage. You know, buy a cottage in the backwoods somewhere, and that will be your space. You own that, and it'll be your space, and you can go there and do whatever it is you want to do. But, you know, the thing is, look, I'm a straight man. I have issues with women. You all know that. Like, they talk about the war of the sexes or whatever. Well, I'm right in the thick of that, I'll tell you, and have been pretty much all my life. You know, I for whatever reason, there's an issue between myself and women. There has been for a long time. But, however, I'm still a straight man. I'm still physically attracted to females. But, you know, if I had a wife or a girlfriend, I couldn't just take her to a public space and have sex with her, or frolic around in the nude with her in a public park. As near as I can tell, all they're doing is they're enforcing the law equally. Because I would get into trouble for doing that. Like I say, if I had some woman in my life that way, and I took her to a public space, and we did the very same things that the homosexuals are doing in that public space, if we got caught, we would get into trouble. At the very least, we'd be ran out of there. And there is a real possibility that we'd face criminal charges. You know, there'd be public indecency and who knows what else. You know, there'd be all kinds of charges there, potentially. I mean, if the cop isn't a total asshole and he's in a good mood that day, he might just say, put on your clothes and get the hell out of here. Don't come down here doing this again. But at the very least, that would be what would happen. And then it would go from there, you know, possibly to charges being laid, to us being arrested. So, as near as I can tell, all they're doing is they're enforcing the law equally. They're saying, well, we're being discriminated against because the law is being enforced. Well, the same law, that would be true. If straight people could go down there, if straight people were allowed to do those things in public spaces, then the gay people would have a point. If they're being pursued by the police for doing these things and by the park authority, then they would definitely have a point if straight people could do it and get away with it. But that just isn't the case. Straight people will be dealt with the same way as gay people. So there is no discrimination there. When the law is being enforced equally, that's not discrimination. In fact, that is the opposite of discrimination. Because the gay people are not being held to a higher standard than the straight people. The gay people are not being arbitrarily targeted any differently than straight people would be. Like, look, if I decided to form a nudist club downriver from the place where the gay people are, in the public park, but in a different location, and I said, okay, I declare this a straight space, and all my straight friends, you can all come down here, your men and your men and women who are straight, and we'll take our clothes off and we'll frolic in the nude and we'll play in the nude, and if you want to have sex, well, you can do that too. If you and some female happen to connect and you decide that you want to take it to the next level, no problem. If I did that, that wouldn't go on very long before we would be targeted too. So I mean, like, as far as I can tell, all that's happening is the law is being enforced equally, which would mean fairly, and not in a discriminatory way, because everybody, regardless of who they are, is held to the same standard of behavior in the public space of the park. So, like I say, I don't understand this whole queer heritage thing that they're on about, and I don't understand why they think they're being discriminated against when all that's happening is they're breaking the law, and the law is being enforced, and the law is being enforced in a way that it would also be enforced if straight people engage in the same behavior. So, in fact, from what I can see, it's taken 50 years for them to start enforcing the law down there. I don't think if I had started up something 50 years ago, like that, but with straight people, I doubt. No, I mean, I'd be like 6 years old 50 years ago or 7 years old, but you know what I mean. If that were to happen 50 years ago, we'd probably have been shut down 50 years ago. You know, we probably would have been doing that for a day. Maybe we'd have got away with it for a weekend or something, and then it would have been found out and we'd have been shut down. So let's not kid ourselves here. These people are not being discriminated against. They're being treated totally fairly. I mean, what's going to happen next? Are they going to say that they should be allowed to commit other crimes and get away with it, or they're being discriminated against? Are we going to have queer shoplifting heritage? I mean, queer armed robbery heritage. Is that what we're going to? Well, you can't arrest the gay people when they commit these crimes because that's our heritage, after all. As queers, that's our heritage. You can't discriminate against us. Is that the message we're going to be receiving next? I mean, I made a comment on the post, as this one guy was saying, what the hell is this queer heritage you're talking about? And I made a comment on the post. I said, just wait, because the CBC here used to run these commercials, and they were called a Heritage Minute. And they would do this thing where they would take a little snippet of Canadian history, and they'd do a minute of, they'd show a little reenactment of it, and there'd be a narrator who would talk over top of it and explain what it was, and then they would say, this has been a heritage, the preceding message has been a Heritage Minute, or at the end of it, they'd say that. They don't run those commercials anymore, but for many years they did. And I said to this guy, just wait, they'll bring it back. Oh, it'll be a queer heritage minute, you know. And I said, I can just see it now with the narration, you know. Pierre and Jacques were portaging their canoe along the Ottawa River. Suddenly, Jacques became erect. Noticing this situation, Pierre sprung into action. I could just see you know, like, it's total insanity anyway. I mean, all I know is that as a straight man, I can't get away with that. And I wouldn't want to anyway. I mean, I don't understand people wanting to do private things publicly. If I had a girlfriend, I don't understand why would I want to take her down to a public area and do those things with her in front of everybody. That's a private thing. You go behind closed doors to do those things. It's a private, intimate thing. One of the things about sex is that it's an intimate activity. It's a private activity. That's one of the things that makes sex special. When a couple has sex, that's one of the things that makes it special, is that it's an intimate and private activity. You're finding out things about each other and knowing things about each other that not everybody knows. Not every man knows your wife or your girlfriend that way. And that makes it special, So why would you turn around then and turn it into a public spectacle? Especially these days, everybody's carrying a cell phone. You'd be all over the internet in no time. You'd be known worldwide, why would you put yourself in that position? It just doesn't make any sense. So for me, I just look at it and I say, I'm not seeing the discrimination. I'm not seeing any heritage value in this. They're pushing this thing about queer heritage, which is ridiculous. And they're claiming to be discriminated against. Well, why? Look, I'm a 56-year-old man and I wear glasses. If I take my truck out onto the road and I speed, and the cop pulls me over, says, I'm going to write you a ticket because I caught you speeding, should I be able to say, well, you know what? You're discriminating against 56-year-old men who wear glasses. Sure, I was speeding. I don't deny that. But the fact that you're actually writing me a ticket for doing so means that you discriminate against 56-year-old men who wear glasses. It doesn't make any sense. No, I was speeding and I got caught speeding. And if I had been a 27-year-old woman who doesn't wear glasses, I'd also be getting a ticket, because I was speeding. It has nothing to do with my age or my gender or my physical appearance. It's because I was speeding. If I hadn't been speeding, I wouldn't have gotten the ticket. So, it's just the same sort of a thing. If you're down in the park engaging in acts of public indecency and you get a ticket, or you get run out of there by the cops or whatever, if they say, put your clothes on and get the hell out of here or whatever, there's no different than what they'd say to anybody. They're not treating the gay people any differently. They're treating them the same as they'd treat me or anybody else who's straight and was down there doing that. So I don't feel any sympathy for their cause. And it isn't because I'm a bigot who hates gay people. That's not what it is. It's because I don't see that there is a cause. They're literally fighting a non-issue. They shouldn't be down there doing those things in the first place. They're committing a crime. Not to mention the fact that that's a heritage property. That's actually been designated a heritage. Those ruins are designated a heritage space. And so they're down there doing whatever at this heritage space, which belongs to the community. It doesn't just belong to them. It belongs to the community. Now, it belongs to them as much as it belongs to me. I'm not saying that I have more ownership of it as a member of the public than they do. And if they want to go down there, look, if gay people want to go down there and look at the ruins and photograph them and explore them and everything, there's nothing wrong with that. Look, I'm allowed to do that. Why shouldn't they be allowed to do it? But again, I'm not allowed to take a woman down there and have sex with her. I'm not allowed to lay down on a big rock out there in the nude and sunbathe, or whatever. I'm not allowed to do that. And so I don't understand why they think they should be allowed to do things like that, to take another man down there and do things with them, or to lay on a rock naked and sunbathe or whatever. I don't understand why they think that that they're being discriminated against when all that's happening is the law is being applied equally. Anyway, that's it. Seems I've been on a bit of a kick these days with this stuff, but it's just because I'm seeing a lot of stuff related to it lately. I'm seeing a lot of stuff connected with the transsexual stuff and the homosexual stuff and everything, and I'm getting tired of it. It's part of the mental illness that's gripping this country, and I'm tired of it. And I'm tired of hearing about how, straight white people are the problem.